Got it.
Yeah, it pops on the screen.
Okay, and that's okay. If y'all can move, you know, move there.
Don't anybody need a napkin?
Nobody needs it.
Keep your hands dirty.
Use your hands.
Yeah, use your whatever you're wearing.
Yeah.
There's live streaming right now, correct? It's live streaming.
Yeah, wave.
Okay.
No one's no. There's no one viewing. So I got.
Started just a little bit,
Okay.
guys. Get a few things from down here.
You have 0 viewers.
3,000 viewers right now.
Yeah. Give or take 2,999.
The whole time filming. Come tonight to do the fitness challenge for mom.
Because he can't access the bed right. I just switched it for him. Hopefully he can get This is a really high-tech setup we have, really good. Our setup is really high-tech. Isn't it awesome? First business? I don't know if back there. Because he wouldn't win. No, just one. Breakfast and whatever they were before. They were twice. Yeah. Yummy fruit. We got Sierra tab, we have a whole Yeah, Juliana's name was Juliana.
There, send it to you. It's Lisa's number.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up today for the somewhat inaugural kickoff of YPWeek here in Madison. Now, what's great about YPWeek is we're going to have about 25 events in the city of Madison. But what's great about YPWeek Wisconsin is the events aren't just taking place in Madison. This year we have 15 cities participating overall. That's up from 8 cities last year. We have 150 events overall throughout all the cities. So what's great about Madison is we all have friends that live throughout the area. Let them know. They don't need to come all the way to Madison or Milwaukee or Green Bay to have young professional networking events. Chances are they're just going to be right in their backyard. And yeah, you should get the word out because this is the only event, this is the only format of its kind in the state, and it's the only format of its kind in the country. So if they miss out and they see the photos, they see the videos afterwards, it might be a little bummed out, but it doesn't have to be that way. Make sure to get the word out. Make sure to get those events. This is something that the state of Wisconsin is taking very seriously. Take talent development and retention very seriously in Wisconsin, and with that, I'd like to welcome Ray Allen, DW Department Secretary, who's just recently hired here, to give some brief remarks on just why it's important. So,
Ray Allen.
On behalf of the government and the Department of Workforce Development, I'm pleased to join you today. And you guys are special because we're in a special place. We're in a special state. And we've got an unemployment rate that's below the national average now, as you've probably heard. We're 4.5, the national average is 5. We've got the highest workforce participation that this state has ever had. So what that means to you is opportunity. Between now and 2022, we'll create 1 million new jobs. One thing. We currently have about 80,000 new jobs that are listed on our website. That's an opportunity for all of you to participate in our economy and to participate at levels that create jobs that are high paying and families sustain. So I'm appreciative of your efforts and your participation in this effort to get the word out. To tell everyone that Wisconsin is a great place to be, it's a great place to work. We talk a lot about coming here for recreational work, but it's also a great place to live. And eventually, when you get older and start to raise families, it's a great place to do that also. And looking around, I want to thank the EDC and certainly Zendesk for their sponsorship of these efforts. Workplaces changed a lot since I started. Well, I'm kind of missing out on, shuffleboards and ping pong tables and free pizza. That's kind of nice. But you're all well deserved. So I'm hoping that you will continue your careers here in Wisconsin, that you'll pursue that, and also use this week and use every opportunity you can to talk about Wisconsin and the opportunity it presents for the millennials to work, to play, and to just live and have fun. It's a great state. People like you that make it great, and I thank you for your efforts today. I thank you for your efforts during the week, and I wish you great careers. So thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Just for the record, it's never too late for free pizza. It's just for everybody. So don't have to worry about that. Okay. I'm just going to provide a little background information about the Millennial Generation as a whole here. I'm going to keep the comments very brief because we got Steve Minstrel coming up. We have the members of the Madison Events Planning Committee. But it's just to give a little bit more background of the Millennial Generation in terms of why you're hearing more about it now than say you were 5 or 6 years ago and more of the Evergreen term. Now it seems like you can't go anywhere without hearing. You can go to a conference, it's the Millennial Generation. How do you cater to them? What are their wants and needs? That's something Steve's going to get into in a lot of great detail. He's going to be able to provide a little background information here. So, okay, so first of all, let's describe the generation in itself. Now, these definitions that you see here in terms of birth rate, in terms of what years they were born, millennials born between 1980 and 2000. That's not a definition I came up with. That's a definition that seems pretty standard throughout, no matter Time Magazine, the Census Bureau, what have you. Now, no matter what happens in your life, you can't change what year you were born. So you would think the Millennial Generation and every one of these generations, whether it's X, baby boomers, traditionalists, would all stay the same regardless. They don't for some reason. But for our purposes here, we're just going to stick with 1980 to 2000 and have a little deep dive in the information. Now, like I said, the reason why the Millennial Generation is so important now, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room already know this, but just want to visualize it because it has been updated. I've looked at this information year in and year out. Because the millennials make up the largest share of the population and make up the largest share of the labor force. And as you can see, well, you can't see it, I know the words are a little small here, but that's not true in just Wisconsin. That's true in the nation too. And I've been able to update this with the most recent census information from 2014, but I've looked at this year in and year out, and it's consistently the same. The millennials still make up the largest share of the generation. Now, this is why it's important nationally and regionally. But I also want to point out millennials make up the largest share of the labor force. It wasn't too long ago when the millennials didn't make up the largest share of the employed population in Wisconsin. I can now say in 2014, the millennials do make up the largest share. So that's why we really do appreciate Ray Allen being here, and we appreciate DWD's efforts. Also appreciate WDC's efforts too. So now we want to know, it's not just us in Wisconsin and the country. We want to give a little background in terms of why it's important globally. I know we're all thinking about, the here and now, but what people really should be thinking about, I know it's something we think about, is what's going to happen in the future. So this is information that came from a global-wide perspective. If you look from the Millennial Generation, you can see 2015, 2020, 2025, 2030, 2040. It's making up a significant larger portion of the pie. And I'm not going to get into too much detail here because since everybody registered and everybody was kind enough to provide that email, I should say kind enough, and had it put in the email registered. I'll send you guys all this PowerPoint presentation too there, so have a chance to dive into it a little bit. I'd like to give a shout out to Patrick Sierra from Star Combs, because he provided me with this information here. You know, we always hear about, you know, all the development, this isn't county development, but if we look at first-time home buyers, and if we look at the information from the chief economist, Jonathan Swope, Madison actually makes up the largest share, the seventh largest share of first-time home buyers is in the Madison area. And that's not including all these new developments, Ovation, the one right across the street, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out, not remembering all the names.
Domain.
But, yeah, see, here. But, yeah. And historically, the 25 to 34-year-olds make up the largest second home buyers. Now, it hasn't always been that way, and he identified that homeownership in the past due to recession and was kind of late, but that's ending now. Let's hope that trend continues now. So, it's like this caught me a little bit off guard. I thought I'd, you know, share with everybody here. So one question we're constantly being asked is, where are people working after they're going to college? Now I know I said the Millennial Generation was between the years 1980 to 2000. And typically, when you look at highest educational attainment achieved, you're supposed to look at people aged 25 and older. However, in this instance, to keep it as large as we can, to give people a chance to finish school and keep it within the generation, we're looking at it from people from age 22 to 36. We're looking at their employment status at work, and we'll, just to expand it as much as we can, we're looking at it from bachelor's degree and higher. So breaking it down by industry and occupation. And this is something that Steve is really going to touch on in terms of saying, look, millennials, what do we want? What are our goals in aspiration? Is it really that different from Wisconsin's needs than the rest of the country's? Well, not if you look at, you know, in terms of industry. I'm sorry, not in terms of if you look at occupations. We have Wisconsin and the United States here, and you know, these are the most highly specialized occupations, and these occupation groups are huge. So when you look at finance, there's all these occupations related to finance. I think some of them have 50, you know, some on within these groups. We're not really seeing that much deviation from Wisconsin and the country. There's nothing that really stands out. We're looking at the occupation groups. However, that's not the case when we look at manufacturing. You know, manufacturing in Wisconsin has a much, you know, significantly higher share than the nation as a whole. Now, the reason I want to point this out is because for some reason, people seem to have this negative stigma associated with manufacturing. They're not taking into effect that manufacturing, you know, just, you know, marketing, computer development, you know, computer-related programs, engineering, and everything else here. So you would think just by looking here, it's all production workers. However, looking at the same source, you're not seeing any applications. So people look at that stuff and say, oh, everybody's in production, you know, manufacturing, you know, work in the assembly line. No, that's completely true. The evidence doesn't support it. So, to my point earlier about looking at things in the future, I want to find out, are these trends going to change? So, you know, breaking it down a little bit, let's look at people age 18 to 24, and let's look at their field degree of study. I'll just have a chance to everybody look this over. We have the national top 5 field study degrees and Wisconsin top 5 field study. Now, it's interesting about this list, it's the same 5 field study, it's just in a different order. Business is still #1, Wisconsin ranks lower in social sciences there, but in education administration, social sciences, mental health sciences, they're all in the top 5 for both Wisconsin and the nation. Now, what I've been able to do is to show the most recent updated information, you know, dive into it. It's not the most beautiful process, but everybody has the option of going and do this themselves. The Census Bureau recently came out with a tool here. I'm not going to get into the, you know, dive here. I'm just going to provide the link. It's called Young Adult Standing Down. It's when you can look at people aged 18 to 34. You can look at their economic status, poverty, veteran status, income, education, whatever. You have tools with it. And it's not just for the state of Wisconsin, but it's for any county, and it's for any MSA in the country. And what's great about that is you don't have to look at it from just 2013. You can look at it from 1970, 1980, 1990, 2000. So going into this tool, here are just some brief examples of Madison. You have the option of taking the Madison MSA and look at it for these variables, like their employee population. We see the employee population for young adults significantly higher than the nation average. And it's also for bachelor's degree higher children. So this is just, if they have any kind of random curiosity to go and check this out, by all means feel free to do so. I'm going to keep my comments brief about that, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay.
I'm going to turn the mic over to Corinne and Aaron. But one thing I really want to say is usually, and I know there's people out there who can attest to this, when you have young professional organizations throughout the state, and especially when you have them in the city, within the same city, there seems to be this kind of nastiness, this kind of mentality, it's us versus them. I got to say, Madison couldn't be further from the truth. Sometimes you see people will tell you that the organizations are working really well together, but in actuality they're not. These guys have done a fantastic job, Jeff too. And I'd actually like to use this time to give a shout out to the Madison Events Planning Committee, because they all happen to be sitting in the same space right in front of us. So I want to say, give a hand to these guys.
Thank you very much, Bob. And we want to also give a thank you to Jill and all the rest of you guys at Zendesk for not only sponsoring this event, but sponsoring YPWeek as a whole. We couldn't have done it without you guys. A big shout out to Bob, WEDC, Rebecca, wherever you are. Thank you so much to you guys as well for sponsoring YPWeek. This week is going to be great. I mean, Bob already touched on a lot of the big points of what we are, 15 different cities, 33 organizations around the state. But we wanted to say that in Madison alone, there are 16 different organizations that are part of the YPWeek Planning Committee. So as we said, a lot of them are right here sitting in this room today. So again, just as a Pam, a big thank you to you guys for planning all of these events. So YPWeek so far, we've had a bunch of different events. We've had Jeff Davis, our president for Connect, he did a golfing event, how to golf. It was yesterday, it was a great event. There was 12 people that were at Tacoma Club, Country Club, and they learned how to improve their swing as well as how to network better with other young professionals if you have someone captive 3 hours at a golf course. We have Corey Digman of Digman Fitness right here. He woke up bright and early this morning and did a boot camp down at Melbourne Park for us, and we had about 20 different young professionals there. So we want to try and host not only engaging professional development activities, we want to host fun activities, healthy activities, and Fran will tell you more about the rest of the week. Okay, so yeah, you all missed out on everything that happened already. So check out pictures. We have hashtag YPWeek. You can check out what's happening all over the state. But I get the pleasure of telling you a little bit more about what's happening. You have schedules in front of you. There's some really great events that still have plenty of space open. Some of them are sold out, so again, too bad, sorry. Those are but they're on wait list, so get yourself on them if you're really inclined to go to some of our events. But I'll just highlight a few things coming up the rest of the week. As Aaron said, we do get people up early and do what's called Rise and Grind workout. There's a variety of those every morning at 6 a.m. So yoga is tomorrow, and we will all be getting ours done on not at the desk, but at the Massive Club. We have a really great event, again, hosted by Connect, what's happening on the Isthmus. 3 spots left, Jessica, so get your spots in, you can do it right from home. Talking about the development going on downtown, and I think it's a really interesting space just to learn about what's going to happen to our city in this little sandwich of Isthmus. We have another talk tomorrow over lunch, YP talk on millennials, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a really important discussion that we're all having, not only in Madison, but in the state. So that has plenty of space left. Check that out. We also have a really cool event hosted by WDC tomorrow night, the speaker crawl. If you've not heard of the speaker crawl, it's a concept that Milwaukee has come up with. There will be 12 speakers throughout the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art that you can hop around and listen to. They do like TED Talk style speeches, and you'll get the opportunity to at least hear 3 of them. 4 of them.
Yeah, and there's information about the speaker crawl on the back counter too, if you guys want it. And it's also going to be the week of the opening of Design Ramoka. So if you guys want to get a sneak peek of Design Ramoka before you have to go in for the official event, you can come to that one for free tomorrow. So.
All right, so moving on, there's a lot of weed left. Okay, so Wednesday, a couple highlights there. If you work downtown, if you're working down here in Dundas, join us at the farmer's market for lunch. Chef Dan Fox from Heritage Tavern will be walking the entire group through the market, talking about what he does, and he purchases things from local vendors, and how he works collectively with farmers in the area to bring things to his restaurant. And then you'll hear from the food and beverage policy coordinator in Madison. After that, just talking about the different things that happen right here in Madison, especially with this big talk that we're having now about a lot of food and retail in downtown. So I'm going to touch on that. Wednesday night is Risky Business. If you want a pair of those really sweet shades that we've been wearing, register for Risky Business. It's about taking risks to pursue your passion. I am a speaker at that, so shameless plug, please come. We'll be talking about preparing your LinkedIn and how you can translate your personal brand, whether you're looking for a new career today or in the future. Mark Richardson will also be there talking about how to make a graceful career departure and make those transitions into new jobs. Thursday, we have a cool tech lunch, apps and apps. So you'll be eating appetizers and talking to app developers. That is adorable. State of Education is Thursday evening. We'll be talking with Nancy Binks from the Madison Metropolitan School District, learning about how we as YPs can get involved in education early, especially those of us having children and starting families. Home Buying 101 is that evening. Bob was talking about how we're a great generation of home buyers. Connect is hosting that event, and you'll learn all about the right questions to ask when you're buying your first home. Friday, during those 2 go event, having conversations with the purpose, talking about how to sit one-on-one with someone and actually make it worth both your while to be there. And then a great big event Friday night, Connect Socially, Eat Locally, the second annual. There's information on your tables.
I think I shamelessly plugged all of you guys who walked in.
So we'll know a lot about that, but it's going to be a really cool event at the Madison Children's Museum. Lots of great food, lots of great local food vendors and vendors, and we get to play, so it's awesome. That brings us to our final day, which there is a team participating in Crazy Lives, so if you're there, watch for YP shirts all over. And then the statewide finale is actually here in Madison at the Henry Valley Zoo. We're taking it over. We get the entire zoo for ourselves. We hang out with the animals, so there'll be live music and buskers and food carts and beer and food and drinks and all the other stuff. So come back, that's $15. All proceeds go to the zoo. It's a great fundraiser for our great partners.
And Angela here planned it all for us. So here's some questions.
Okay, and that's the week. So come to the events, check them out. A lot of them are free. They're open to everyone. And one more thing, which we were taking selfies here in the middle. We do have a YPWeek app for the iPhone. Download that and take selfies. It goes right to a map of the state of Wisconsin, and you can enjoy your beautiful face and put on all of this.
Hashtag YPWeek. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank them again, for all the efforts in terms of putting all the events together. And last year was the first year I was done at the statewide level. I got to tell you, everybody's experience, and there's nothing else like this. And this year it's bigger and better than ever, so by all means, go to as many events as you can. A show of hands here. How many people? Of course. Just a show of hands here, how many people, is this their first time being in the Zendesk building right now? Oh, that's nice. Everyone's hoping it would be that way. We're hoping it'd be that way because I want to show in Madison just how full some of the facilities really are. I mean, and you're just having a small taste of it. Isn't this a nice place here? Mm-hmm. Isn't it a place you could plug or see yourself working in someday? Another reason we're hosting it here, and I know Jelana's going to touch on this, but last year, Zendesk won one of the 2015 Butler Awards for Best Places for Young Professionals to Work. And you can see the award right here. And yes, it is out of the Butler because Wisconsin were the only ones who call it a Butler. Everyone else calls it a drinking fountain. It's fine. We're still going to call it a Butler. So I'm going to let Jelana speak about the great things about Zendesk. And thank you so much for hosting us today.
Thanks, everybody. So yeah, we just thought it would be sort of strange to have you all come in and then not even tell you where you work or why we are here in Madison, because a lot of it has to do with young professionals and the great institutions we have in town with YPW and MATC and the places where people come, flock from all over the country, the world, come get a great education. But then what's next? Where there were a handful of us who graduated from UW, and how we got to stay here because of Zendesk. So this is Zendesk, where you all are, and this is just a snapshot of our website, but these three guys are actually friends from Copenhagen, and back in 2007, they just came up with this idea in their loft that customer service could be better, and people could actually enjoy interacting with the company, and thus Zendesk was born. Zendesk is the name of our company and also the name of our software, which is, to put it simply, a customer service application where you're able to see requests coming in from your customers, and you're able to get back to them on all sorts of channels, traditional ones like email and phone, but also chat, social media, Twitter, Facebook, and we keep coming up with new ways that we can embed that customer service right into your product to make it easier. So to go really quickly, from those days of just 3 games over in Denmark in 2007, if we flash forward to 2016, we're now a public company with closer to 1,300 employees across 11 offices around the globe. If you look at this map, you know, you've got names like Sao Paulo and Singapore and London, San Francisco, and Madison might seem a little out of place because I would say we're definitely the smallest city where we have a formal office. So again, it sort of happened by serendipity, where it was just again, there were, when I joined the company, there were only about 300 employees around the globe back in early 2013, and just 5 of us working from home. But we had come from UW and worked at the help desk there, supporting 50,000 students, faculty, staff. We knew how help desks worked and how to scale them, which was something that Zendesk was looking to do. So we just were a match made in heaven, and some Danish culture meets San Francisco startup fun, like ping pong and shuffleboard in the office, meets some Midwest work ethic. Again, it was a match made in heaven, and at this point, we're up to 170 employees right here in this office. So to give a bit of background on what I do, which is corporate social responsibility, really speaks a lot to not only the direction of the company, but also where our employees are coming from and really what connects with them about not only our software, but our methodologies and what we like to think of as really just how we operate all around. So in this day and age, there's just a level of transparency that was not there even 10 years ago. You as a consumer, you all have voices, you're able to go to social media channels, state your opinion, and that could sway future people from buying or not buying something from that company. You know, there's just a lot more weight put on the individual consumer nowadays. And as has been referenced, millennials are a huge chunk of what is now not only the workforce, but also consumers. Millennials are the biggest group of the US population, coming around 80 million, and they are also the biggest spenders at this point, with over 1 trillion in consumer spending. So our company is made of a lot of young professionals, and we're really catering to those young professionals. And so programs like ours, where we encourage volunteering during the day, we work with groups around the communities that we are a part of across 11 offices. All of that speaks to us trying to give our employees something more. It's not just a job here, you're really part of a bigger picture thing of, yes, we're trying to revolutionize customer service. It's all about building relationships and having customers and businesses able to better communicate and make everybody just feel better at the end of the day. And hopefully along the way, make the communities where we are and the world a better, more equitable and diverse place. So as we can see here, our corporate social programming, that CSR at the top, these are all from polls, but they found that there's a lot of influence on where someone in this millennial age range is going to shop, or what they're going to invest in, and then also which they're going to recommend, which we love word of mouth, and that's been our kind of sales methodology from day one, and we've gotten a lot of customers that way just because of the ethos we put behind that that product tool. So just some quick snapshots. This was just out last week. We had 6 volunteer activities just last week. Everybody went out and cleaned up the parks for Earth Day. We had a huge group go out to the River Food Pantry. We painted the walls at the Y, and this is our CEO, who every time he comes out, always is looking for a volunteer opportunity himself. So long and short of it is, we find that this is just a real factor that brings millennials in the door and then keeps them here at ZS, where it gives them more than just staring at a computer screen and dealing with angry customers. It's a way to kind of hit that reset button and connect the community around you, and not be that kind of typical, sometimes some companies get a bad rap for being ivory towers in the communities they're a part of. So again, thanks for a moment to just highlight what we all love so much about ZS, and this is just an anonymous quote from an employee through a satisfaction survey that we sent around. So we really found that it's a great way to retain employees and keep them satisfied in their day-to-day jobs. So again, thank you all for being here and enjoying lunch today, and thanks Bob and Aaron and everyone else who was part of YPWeek, and yeah, we're just glad to be a part of it.
And just so everybody knows, this event is also being live streamed, and right after this is connected, it will roll right into our YouTube page. And right after the presentation, Jolana's going to be giving a tour, via the webcam, to let those people out there, and you can't see TV land anymore, but let people watching the video have a chance to see, ZS, what a great place it is. How a fun, relaxed environment it is. I'd like to introduce Steve Benchwell here. We took the liberty of printing out his profile. It's at the end here. He's been very involved with the Millennial Generation here. He's done a lot of great work for WMC, and you're going to notice this guy has a lot of passion about the generation. That's why we asked him to come. So I want to thank Angela, nominating him to come to speak here. So he just wants to give his presentation now.
Cool, thank you everybody for giving me part of your day today, and hopefully that can be a good end to the meeting here. So my name is Steve Benchwell, and I am in charge of a program called Wisconsin Business World. I have a really cool job. I work for the State Chamber of Commerce, and I travel all around Wisconsin, and I work with high school kids and middle school kids, and it's basically like a Shark Tank TV show, if anybody sees Shark Tank, but with high school kids. So they come up with an idea, they get really excited about it, and while they're pitching their idea and working on their personal skills, they're learning all sorts of stuff about the workplace, generational differences, which is what we're going to talk about today. But I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of background on what I do. So if you know any high school kids, brothers or sisters, nieces, nephews, neighborhood kids, make sure they know about Business World. I'll put a plug in at the end as well. But besides my high school programs, I also work with a lot of kids. I tutor DSL kids up on the top left at Cherokee Middle School here in town. I coach AAU basketball to the squad up on the right. I run basketball camps at a neighborhood center for low-income kids by my home on the north side. Shout out to any north siders in the room. We got Marlo there in the bottom middle, my little brother for Big Brother Big Sisters program. And my Business World camper is on the bottom right. So I put all that onto a slide so that you guys can see that I work with thousands of millennials and Generation Z kids every single year. I'm not just a doofus who Google generational differences, but I do Google generational differences all the time. So if that was your only talking point on me, you wouldn't be too far off. But I work with lots of kids, and that's kind of the background I wanted to start with. So whenever I get my kids, or in this case, a group of kids at heart, I try to help relate to them. I tell them how I saw myself when I was in high school. And when I was in high school, when I was getting ready for school in the morning, looking in that bathroom mirror, getting everything just right for my day, this is what I saw looking back. Anybody know who that is?
Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg. And when I didn't think I was Snoop Dogg, I thought I was one of these two. Shout it out. Who knows these two? Tupac and Biggie. That's right. They were my idols. I couldn't get enough. It was the 90s. Hip-hop culture was bursting on the American scene. I joke with my teenagers today. They take it for granted. You turn on the radio, Pandora, TV. Hip-hop culture's everywhere. Even if rap's not your thing, it's kind of synonymous with American culture now. And it wasn't always the case. At one point, it was new, it was different. I couldn't get enough of it. I was sitting in my driveway, sagging my shorts, blasting rap music, saying, "What up, dog?" And everybody that walked by, my parents just looked at me and they shook their head, right? They didn't get it. Grandpa looked at me and it was even more of a generational gap. But I got it, and me and my friends got it. We thought it was so cool, we couldn't get enough. Those guys were our idols, the way they talked, the way they dressed, the way they acted. It was basically how we wanted to express ourselves. And if we fast forward till today and ask how our kids today expressing themselves, it's largely through technology and social media. Numbers here probably don't surprise you. The only reason that the little homie on the left isn't higher than 81 is probably because mom and dad are smart enough to not give them an iPhone yet. But as someone who coached a team of 9-year-olds, most of them have iPhones already, so watch out. The world is headed downhill fast. Just kidding. But this is the generation that lives online. They are literally sharing their entire life for the world to see. I travel the state working with kids, and quite often I get lucky enough to speak to groups of their parents. Most of their parents can't even name these networks. They can't even come up with the name of it, let alone have an understanding of what their kid is doing and posting and sharing it. So let's see how millennial we are in the room right now. You recognize these logos, I want you to shout them out loud and proud.
Facebook.
Raise your hand if you're on Facebook. Go ahead, obviously, right?
Twitter.
Raise your hand if you're on Twitter, okay.
Instagram.
Instagram is that. So my 9-year-old basketball team, as we kind of got to know each other, I tried to find them on social media. Couldn't find a single one on Facebook. Found every single one on Instagram. Any guesses as to why? Why are they not on Facebook? Because their parents all have it. I asked Jimmy, I pulled Jimmy out of his layup lines. I said, "Jimmy, how come nobody's on Facebook?" He said, "Coach, I would never be on something that my mom is on." Right? So Facebook, when I was in college, it was cool. It was really cool. Kids were hanging out. You couldn't even get on Facebook without a school email address, and nobody else could get on, right? But fast forward to 2016, my grandpa's got a Facebook. The party's officially over. Steve's grandpa's on Facebook. So now Facebook is like the kitchen table. It's the dining room. Everybody's on Facebook. Instagram is kind of where the cool kids are hanging out in the basement. And if they're not hanging out on Instagram, they're hanging out on
Snapchat.
Snapchat. That's right. Does anybody know this one?
Vine.
Vine. You guys are good. Very millennial in the room today. YPWeek. So for those of you who don't know, YPWeek is an anonymous site where I can post whatever I want. And if you think it's funny, you upload it. If you don't like it, you download it. Very popular with the college kids right now, and by extension, and high school kids. So if you got any of those kids in your life, just ask them, "Are you on YPWeek?" And then just watch their face melt because they had no idea that you didn't know about this. So why do we care? Why does this matter, right? We're talking about social media networks for a few minutes. Well, we have more generations at work now than we ever had before. And this generation that's growing up with social media, the millennials and Generation Z right behind them, are coming into the workplace. And we're starting to see all these differences between the generations. You can see the different generations, the birth years, the percent of the workforce that they make up. And here's kind of our reality. There might be 5 generations in your workforce. If you work in an industry that employs the very, very young and the very, very old, like say a movie theater, right? You got retired people taking tickets, you got a 14-year-old working his first job or her first job, you might have 5 generations. So here's the bottom line. Whether you like millennials or not, you're gonna have to work with them. We're gonna all have to work together in a multi-generational workforce. There's no getting around that. That's the reality. What's really up to us is to decide how hard we're gonna work to try to understand the experience and perspective that each generation has. Because the way that we grew up really has a lot of impact on the adults that we've become. And the way that we've grown up through the different generations has changed drastically over time. So we have a huge generation gap at work. You guys have probably seen it firsthand. And it's basically rooted in the fact that we were all raised differently. The way that we worked, the way that we learn, what drives us, what we work hard to achieve, the things that we hold up as important and desirable, all have changed over time. And we've seen a shift in our parenting styles and the way that we raise our kids a few generations ago. And we start to see this generation of kids who was told you're special and you're important and you can make change in this world and you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up if you work hard enough. Well, those special kids are now starting to come to work. And we're starting to see generations who didn't grow up with that title of special, and we're starting to see some conflict. Essentially, it comes down to this. quite often, management, supervisors, the bosses of the world are at least one generation older than the people that they're supervising and managing. And they were probably raised very, very differently. And therein lies a lot of the conflict, that these generations come from different places, and sometimes they just can't relate. So outcomes from today, here's what we're trying to go for. Better understanding of millennials, not just why we're different, but why we're special, right? We're these special generations, but also kind of understanding and putting it into context of why this week matters so much. We have a huge demographic issue in Wisconsin, where if you look 20 years out, we're gonna get a lot older in Wisconsin. A lot of baby boomers are retiring and coming home or staying home in Wisconsin. Wisconsin. I also work with a lot of businesses who look around their executive leadership and they see a lot of people who are going to be retired and gone in 5 to 10 years. And those companies don't know who the next generation of leaders are going to be. And they're starting to panic. So in some ways, it might not be here yet, but we are going to have a leadership crisis in Wisconsin as companies try to figure out how do we hand the reins from the baby boomers and eventually Gen Xers down to that next generation of talent, and that's the millennials. So you guys know what a generation is. It's about 20 years. And what we're basically saying is that if we grew up in about the same place, at around the same time, the same group of people, we're going to have kind of lived through the same experiences that bring us together as a generation. And what this is not about is tell me what year you're born, and I'm going to tell you exactly how you must be because I'm going to know what generation you're from, and I'm going to stereotype you and push you into this neat little box. That's really not how it works. You're not trying to force somebody into a box based off of what generation you're from. But if I know, broadly speaking, what generation you're from, I probably have some clues I can use about how you might have been raised, how you might see the world, and maybe the most comfortable way for us to relate and get along. So expressed numerically, it might be kind of hard to see, but we heard so much about the mighty baby boomers, about 75 million. The millennials are actually bigger. And we've already heard today that the millennials are now the primary spending generation, which means that millennials have officially started to outspend baby boomers. So we've already seen this shift in millennial culture, where we're starting to hear the term a lot more. We're starting to hear about how companies are attracting millennials. We're starting to see advertising be more aimed and geared towards millennials. That's because millennials are taking over as the primary spending demographic. Now, never mind the fact that a lot of us are still spending our parents' money, even at the age of 20s or 30s, but we'll take the title of primary spenders. We'll take it. So we've got all these generations in the workplace, right? We got my grandpa, the veteran generation. He wants you to write it down on paper. My dad, the baby boomer, wants a phone call. My cool uncle that knows technology wants an email. And if there's any other millennials like me in the room, why are you calling me right now when you could have just sent me a text, right? 4 generations, they're all motivated differently. They want different things. If you're in human resources, it starts to feel like this poor guy. How do I keep all these different groups of people happy? I think the best way is to try to take a quick look at what shaped each generation and what the defining moments were that kind of made them the adults that they were. What did they live through that influenced their life as adults? So if we go to my grandpa's generation, the veteran generation, some people will call them the traditionalists. Not all of these people served in conflict, obviously, but their generation gave such a sacrifice for our country. We see a generation who lived through the Great Depression. I don't know what it would have been like to wait in line to get a loaf of bread to feed your family, but it must have been a combination of frustration and embarrassment and anxiety, and I can't even relate to what that must have been like. But there's a whole generation of 10. They lived through World War II. They knew what it was like to lose everything that they had around them, to bury their friends. One of the coolest parts of my job is I get to share this talk around the state. And while I'm a millennial, I know millennials, I know kids, because I work with Generation Z, I don't know very much about this generation. And a gentleman came down after one of these talks with tears in his eyes. And what he told me was, I want you to tell the high school kids in Wisconsin that the word that defines my generation was grieving. He said we were constantly grieving. He said a lot of better men than me didn't get to come home. And just being with him in that exchange was powerful enough. But even before that, I knew the level of sacrifice that this generation made is something that my millennial generation just simply can't relate to. What a bad day was for this generation and what a bad day is for the average millennial are probably 2 very, very different things. If we were to put them on one slide as a whole generation, it's tough to do that, but if we're going to do it, their reality is that life is hard and you can lose everything. So if you were to ask them what their dreams were pretty modest. I want to survive, I want to provide, I want to raise a family, I want to have job security. Not like the things we worry about today, how much money we have, how big of a house do we have, and how nice of a car do we have, right? A lot of those material things, this generation didn't care about because it wasn't what they lived through. The dandelion on the top right is to remind me to tell you guys a story about a speaker who used to be able to come and talk to my high school kids and now he's too old. His name was Marv Schumacher. This is not Marv in the photo, but it very well could have been. This is how poor Marv was when he grew up. Marv was so poor, his mom would send him across the street to the park to pick dandelions, and he would bring the dandelions back, and that's what the family would eat for dinner. No breakfast, no lunch, dandelions for dinner, and if you were lucky, they could scrape their change together, buy some vinegar to pour on top so you didn't taste the dirt punched in your teeth. I love sharing that story with 16-year-old kids. So I tell them, let's all put down our $700 iPhones and think about what it would be like to put a dandelion in our mouth and chew it up and eat it, and that's your sustenance for the whole day. Just living through that experience. Think about the impact that would have on you as an adult. What your definition of success is, how much money you need to feel like you're a successful person. It's all changed over time. After the veterans came the baby boomers, a much different generation because of what they lived through. This is a generation that gave us women's liberation and civil rights, some amazing things that made America what it is today. They also gave us corporate America as we know it, right? Work hard, play hard. This was a generation that made more money than their parents would have ever dreamed of. And we start to see them wanting to spend all that money. They're working really hard for it. They want to have nice things. We start to see materialism kind of entering into the picture, right? Boomers like to have possessions, they like to buy things. Well, what is at the center of a baby boomer's life? And it's not any possession. This is a question for you guys. What does a baby boomer's life revolve around? Their work, yes. But what is even more important to them than their work? Retirement is also very important. Who do they come home to every night? Their family. That family, those kids are at the center of that baby boomer's life. And if you ask the baby boomer what their dreams and reality was to be maybe to be more successful than my parents, maybe to give my kid the best life that I could, and we start to see a shift in the way that we parent. We start to see this in the baby boomer generation. And if you were to ask the average baby boomer, describe your father, that baby boomer would probably tell you some variation of the following. He was a really good man. He showed me what it meant to work hard to provide for our family. But it was kind of his way or the highway. What he said went, and it wasn't really an open discussion. It wasn't really give and take. He kind of laid the law down and we followed his rules. It was very authoritative. And some of those baby boomers said to themselves, when I have kids, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm still going to be the boss. I'm still going to be in charge, but we're going to talk about things. I'm going to let you have an opinion. I'm going to allow you to give me input. I'm going to allow you to have a voice in this discussion. I'm going to be a little bit more invested in your emotional well-being than maybe my father was to me. And we start to see that pendulum swinging back. My grandfather grew up in a world where children were to be seen and not heard, which means that if an adult's not talking to you, then keep your mouth shut because you haven't worked hard enough or long enough to earn the right to have an opinion that the whole room's going to want to listen to, right? Children were to be seen and not heard. Well, fast forward to 2016, and I can see it firsthand in my AAU basketball teams, those kids are at the center of their family's lives. Those kids are the ones who decide where we're going to go on tournaments. We went to Kentucky, Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota. You guys, they were in third grade, and we were terrible at basketball. We were barely 500. But that's where those kids wanted to go, and their parents did it. The kids are the ones who decide where we go out to dinner, where the family goes on vacation. When the family buys a new car, the kid has input in that discussion. So we see kids now starting to be at the center of that family structure. And a lot of what mom and dad are saying is, I want to give little Junior more chances than I had, more opportunities than I had. I'm going to be supportive. I'm going to be his best friend so that he can always achieve whatever it is that he wants. And the outcome of the shift in parenting styles is basically seen in how the kids leave that house. And millennials and Gen Z kids largely are made to feel powerful, important, and hyper-connected. And we'll talk about those three adjectives, those three traits when we get to millennials. But before millennials, we do not want to overlook Generation X. While they are the smaller of the generations, they often get overlooked. We are not going to do it here today. You guys gave us Nirvana and Kurt Cobain, so shout out for that. That was awesome. But if we were to put them on a slide like the other generations, we see a very different generation than the baby boomers. We see America starting to lose its grip as this superpower globally. Globalization is starting to enter into the economic picture in a global sense, which means that we're starting to see companies overseas manufacture things, putting pressure on American factories. Wages are going down in America. Unemployment is going up. If you were a kid during this time, maybe you saw your mom or dad get laid off or fired from a job, right? Maybe you saw your parents get divorced during this generation. The divorce rate goes through the roof. This is a generation that saw some turbulence in the American economy. It wasn't quite as rosy of a picture as it was for the baby boomers who saw that unprecedented economic growth year after year after year. Generation X, a lot of them maybe thought and worried, I'm going to be the first person that is not more successful than my parents. The first generation that doesn't do better than their parents. They were kind of skeptical and cynical because of what they saw going on around them. They didn't maybe buy into the American dream as much as the baby boomers did because maybe the opportunities weren't there in quite the same way that they were for that baby boomer generation. We also see Generation X labeled as the latchkey kids. Because one of the positive things that came out of this era was that women are now going to work in the same numbers as men, right? Years ago it was mom stayed at home, raised the family, had dinner on the stove, when dad came home from work with his briefcase and top hat, and that was how life was in the 1950s. Well, luckily we're not there anymore, and we can do whatever we want to do with our professional careers. If you want to go to work, go to work. If you want to stay home, stay home. But what it meant for these kids was they were called latchkey kids. I got a key at the front door, I come home from school, I lock it behind me, and I'm home alone until mom and dad get home from work at 5 o'clock. Now you tell a millennial or a Generation Z kid today that you're home alone by yourself for 3 hours with no parents around, and they're probably going to look at you with a smile on their face and say, heck yeah, I got YouTube, I got my Xbox, I got my iPhone, I got my iPad, I'm going to be texting my friends, I'm going to Snapchat, and I'm going to be fine. Take as much time as you want, you don't need to hurry back, right? But if you were a Generation X kid, you didn't have all those toys. You were kind of by yourself. You were a little bit more independent. I heard from a Generation X person once after one of these talks, he said, we were kind of independent. I felt like we raised ourselves because our parents weren't around and we didn't have smartphones to answer all of our questions for us. We were kind of independent and a little bit more isolated, and they kind of like to do things a little bit more on their own. We even see that as a working style, as a stereotype of Generation X. They're a little bit more independent. They prefer to kind of do things on their own as opposed to millennials who maybe are more inclined to do things in a group or in a team. You also gave us the Breakfast Club, so big shout out to Gen X. After Gen X came my generation, the millennials, right? And we see some traits around millennials like being very digitally oriented, being very well educated. We also see some shifts in the way that we like to work and get things done. We are very, very used to collaborating. We've always been part of a team. Whether you were in the sports when you were a kid, you were in a team, a no-cut team. Everybody got to play. Everybody got an orange slice in the juice box after the game. Everybody got a trophy at the end of the year. If you didn't like sports, your parents probably pushed you into band or drama or forensics. Chances are you were very busy, you were very structured, you kind of had that level of connection with other kids your age. We also see a shift in the way that we are global citizens. So every generation has cared about the planet, every generation has cared about the world around them. But if you grew up with YouTube in your pocket, and you had literally an HD version of what was going on around the world, you have never been more connected to the kid that looks just like you on the other end of the planet than kids are today. I see it in your kids, the ideas that my business camp kids come up with. It's ideas like helping kids in Kenya clean their drinking water. I don't know that my grandpa would have even fathomed an idea like that. He wouldn't have even had the tools to get it done. But I saw it firsthand in the kids today and the tools that they have around them. We also see a shift in who we put up on a pedestal as our heroes. Now, I haven't really taken the time to mention the heroes from the other generations, but for the boomers, it's people like Martin Luther King, Gandhi. For the veterans, it was people like Patton and FDR. I mean, for the boomers, Martin Luther King is somebody who literally died and gave their life for the change that they believed in. And I'm a millennial, so I'm not trying to bring my own generation down. There's quite a stark contrast between Martin Luther King and Jay-Z and Beyonce. But who we put up on pedestals as who our heroes are is evolving. And I see it even more so with the middle school kids I work with now. These are who their heroes are. I had a grandpa come down after one of these talks, and he said, Steve, the heroes that my grandkids look up to today would have been cautionary tales of what not to behave like when I was their age. I thought that was pretty profound and true, a sign of the times. So this millennial generation, my generation, and this is the slide from the baby boomers, bringing it back to tie together because we were largely raised by those baby boomer parents. We were the kids who were given the best life that our parents could afford. We were the generation of kids whose families pretty much revolved around us. And we were made to feel really powerful, important, and extremely connected. That power comes from the fact that from a very, very young age, I saw with my 9-year-olds that they are put in a position to build skills, to feel important, to build trophies and ribbons, and to feel accomplished and successful and important. They also feel powerful because they have the tools of the internet age around them. When a kid wants an answer to a question, what does he do? He Googles it and he gets it in 2 seconds. If you want to know how to do something, you go on YouTube, you watch a tutorial, and in 1 minute you know how to do it. They have more power in their pockets than any generation has ever had before them, and it makes them feel like they can do things. They've seen kids that are their age start businesses or start a YouTube channel and become famous or popular. They feel very empowered. One of the other ways that they feel very powerful is not just because they're this decision maker who gets to pick where the family goes on vacation, or who gets to pick what's going on, but it's also because they have knowledge. If you were to walk into the average American house, who do you think the chief technology expert is in that family? It's probably the 10-year-old kid. So that 10-year-old, from a very young age, has felt like I have information to share, I'm important, I know things that the older people in my life don't, and it makes them feel very, very powerful. We're raised to feel very, very important because we're decision makers. We help plan things. We are very, very supported and praised in our efforts by our coaches and by our teachers and by our parents. We're kind of used to having an army of adults in our life that are very, very supportive. But when we put it all together, it kind of ends up with the kids that feel like they're the boss, right? I'm very, very empowered. I'm very, very important. And we also see a hyperconnectivity with a generation that's much different than their Gen X counterparts. This is a generation of kids, millennials, even now millennials who come to work, that before they even get out of bed in the morning, they check Instagram and Snapchat. They've grown up with a part of a team environment their entire life. In school, they did group projects. When they go on their phones and they see what's going on in the world around them, they're global citizens. So they're used to doing things together. And now millennials are largely managed by Generation X, a generation that was not used to doing all these things together. So we see frequent criticism of millennials as they always need feedback. They always need support. They can't do things by themselves or on their own. It's because largely it was how we were raised and what we're comfortable with, what is normal to seatbelt and worn a bike helmet. We've always downloaded our music. We've always shopped online. We've always thought history had its own TV channel. We've always used our phones to scan. We've never had an airplane ticket in our hand. We just use our phone. We've never seen the tan M&Ms, but we remember the blue ones in the promotions. Most of us have never dialed a rotary phone. And if you really want to make a millennial freak out, just ask them what the Dewey Decimal is. Some of us in the room remember, other of us don't. Some of us still get help from our parents, right? So these were things that I literally taught my college roommates how to do. Use the dishwasher, wash the laundry in the laundry machine. But here's a survey from American Consumer Credit Counseling Foundation. If you are a baby boomer who has adult millennial kids and elderly parents of your own, you are statistically more likely to be subsidizing the life of your adult millennial child than to be taking care of your elderly parent. And to me, that seems completely backwards. We have a generation of parents who maybe did a little bit too much, who maybe helped a little bit too much, and that led them to have kids growing up into young adults that enter the workplace and maybe lack some of the professional skills that older generations had because of the different ways that we were raised and the different ways that we grew up. This generation of millennials has always had a team, they've always had a coach, they've always had a supportive adult in their life. Probably an army of supportive adults in their life. And a lot of millennials don't expect that support to change when we trade our backpack for a briefcase. I'll wrap it up in 1 minute here, guys. One of the last slides that I want to offer up too is on millennials and mobility. You hear millennials labeled as job hoppers, and while that might be true to a degree, every generation that's had the youngest people in that group has always been more likely to move around. So if you're the youngest person, you're more likely to feel that freedom to move than the parents, people who have kids and families and all that. The other thing that we see is college debt playing in the equation. $25,000 average college debt. If you come out of college with a $400 a month debt payment, that's a car rent payment right there, right? We see under millennials don't buy cars like they used to, but we're buried under a mountain of college debt. And we're starting our families a lot later because we see a sense of delayed adulthood. So what makes somebody an adult? Marriage? Is it kids? Is it buying a mortgage? You also hear negative things around millennials and homeownership. Well, if I'm in my 30s and I haven't started my family yet, then thank you very much, but your nice house in the cul-de-sac is not as interesting to me as it is to somebody who's trying to raise kids. I'll get to that eventually, but I'm not at that life stage yet. So we see a lot of millennials not acting like adults, right? Act more like an adult. Well, if we don't see ourselves as adults, good luck trying to get us to act like one. We have a sense of delayed adulthood, and we have an experience gap. So my final slide on what millennials want. Okay? Millennials basically, to me, want 5 things. We want a supportive work environment where we have a coach and a mentor that's reflective of the level of support we've had growing up. We want balance between our personal lives, which are more demanding than ever before, and our professional work life. We want a voice, the same voice that we've had since we were 9-year-old chief technology officers in our house. Give us the opportunity to express ourselves. We want access to opportunities, access to promotions, access to professional development. So give us opportunities to serve on the board, be on committees. And we've heard a lot about it today, but we have a very strong social conscience, and we want to work for somebody, an employer, who reflects that back in the work that we do for society. We want to work with somebody who has a very strong social conscience. So thank you guys so much for your time. Sorry I went a little bit over, but I'll pass the mic back to Bob here. And if any of this is interesting or relevant, please, Bob's got my info, and I'd love to come into your organization and we can talk about this all afternoon. So thank you guys so much.
I love the overtime actually went right on the dot, so it's always nice to have that efficiency there. So hope you guys had a great time with Young Professional Week. Like I said, it's in 15 different cities across the state of Wisconsin, and you might want to ask yourself, would anybody be intense enough to go to all 15 cities? I can probably say yes, there it is. And he's standing right behind there, Dick O'Brien, coming all the way from Wausau to meet with us today, and he's going to go to every single one of the cities with 2,000 miles on his car. You want to put the camera on his car? Yeah, we're going to put the camera on.
This camera.
So, yeah, and everybody there, a tour send us, and thanks for coming in.
Here's
Nick. The rest of the week.